Yes, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, and friends, and the fans, and those who listen in, who join me every Saturday morning to do marriage melodies and take a look at how we can make marriages more beautiful, how we can restore those little challenging um, or difficulties that we experience in our marriages, how we can make our relationships with our spouses, our wives and husbands better. This is the reason why we do marriage melodies, and this is the reason why I invite everyone to join me every Saturday morning here on Facebook Live. If you're also going to be watching it after it has been recorded live, I thank you for taking time out, spending your data to watch it. And also thank all of those who listen to me on live radio every Thursday morning in Lagos. The world is going through a difficult time. This global health pandemic is challenging, debilitating. It's a very difficult time in the history of mankind that a certain disease has the capability of shutting down the entire human enterprise. It's very this morning to all those people who have lost their loved ones. What I can assure you is that for those who know the truth, that we should not grieve for too long, because all those who have passed will return again and we will see them on the day of resurrection. For those whose loved ones are sick, I comfort you and I ask you to take heart and take solace and comfort in the beautiful messages and assurances that we have in Scripture and in the gospel of Jesus Christ. I have a firm belief that God Almighty knows what is going on. He is observing everything, and that His mercy and divine good will flow to man as His mercy for us continue to rise. For it is of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed. And so let us take comfort and let us take the assurance that through Him, man will find solution and we will conquer this one again. Last week, my friends, we talked about resolving conflict, and I said that was part 1. And I'm going to just try to run it through and finish with it today. Because the many problems, someone wrote me a long message that I do downplay the role of money in marriage. And I wanted to do an episode on money, because I used to say, and I always hold the belief, and I believe it, having been in marriage for 31 years and going forward, I have seen that marriage is different from the enterprise of money. For God is such a loving God that everybody can participate in marriage, whether no matter your station in life, from the richest to the poorest can experience the beauty of marriage. And once this is so, this is why I de-emphasize marriage as a frontal power of making marriages beautiful. Marriage is an institution that can stand the test of time. It means that it can survive under any circumstance. That's why those who wrote a marriage vow said, in richer or poorer, meaning that no circumstance would defeat it. And God knows that since the marriage is like the church and Christ, The gate of hell shall not prevail against the church. See the word there. No matter the circumstance, this pandemic will not prevail over the church, irrespective of the fact that we are asked to stay at home and not to congregate. God knew that a time like this can come. That's why he said the church is not a building, the church is not the gathering, the church is the people. And so if the church is the people that gathers, they can also gather spiritually in their heart, with their hearts connected to God. In this vein, the church is flourishing even now. If you know what I'm talking about, you are connected spiritually, and the church is in one accord, uplifting and glorifying God, irrespective of the pandemic, whether we meet physically or not. So these are some of the realities why one must understand that marriage is superior to money, and that even if you have all the money in this world, does not guarantee that you will be successful in marriage. Even if you are the most handsome, does not. So marriage is for the ugly, the handsome, and everyone that lives as a human being and born of God. One of the biggest ingredients to succeed in marriage is called the currency of the Spirit of God. It projects good towards the other. Once you have that, you will succeed. Once you know that marriage is to do the other good, you succeed. It is not the money, it is not the things, it's not the cars, it's not the houses that you have. As you are listening to me, you might be in the US, in the UK, in some of the most glamorous and opulent circumstances, and you might be experiencing marriage problem. And you will agree with me that if it were to be marriage, if you look at your circumstances, you shouldn't have any problem. So money is a tool that enables us to enjoy our marriage, but that is not what guarantees the success of the marriage. Just like love. Love is a beautiful experience in marriage, especially the erotic love I'm talking about. That erotic love does not sustain marriage. If that erotic love sustains marriage, a lot of people who are divorced today will not, because they will tell you, we loved each other when we met. So these are words of wisdom. Let us now go about harmonious living, because what I'm intending to do now, people have been locked at home, husbands and wives who hitherto never had a good relationship. They were always at loggerheads. And now, and because they were busy, they mask and they cover themselves up, and they were always going out. Now this lockdown has made it very mandatory that you will be with the person together with your nuclear family every day. So those who used to fight, what are they going to be doing now? Will they continue to fight? So this is why I said I want to promote harmonious living between husbands and wives, and teach you some of the techniques to solve the problems that have arisen, and the ones that will arise during this difficult time. I talked about talking it over last week, and now I want to continue to say that let us avoid pointing fingers when we want to resolve problems. Don't throw accusations at your spouse. When you invite your spouse for a discussion, do not throw accusations. You did that, I did that. That spirit is cantankerous. It's not a spirit that promotes harmony. And then this will make them feel very defensive. Naturally speaking, if you accuse me, I want to defend myself. So the wisdom here is that do not throw accusation. Yes, Ugo Emmanuel Ike is watching, and I appreciate you all the way. That's my good brother. This guy gave me my first million. I became a millionaire when I transacted business with Emmanuel. That was many years ago, in the 90s. And I want to say, and your argument could turn into a full-blown fight. Instead, tell them how you feel in the best of languages. In the best of languages. Make sure that the language is seasoned with salt. You know what I mean? Because the marriage institution is not where you use bitter words. Some husbands are very toxic. They call their wives all manner of names. You are stupid. You are an idiot. Such words, no. It's also a good idea to stay clear of some kind of words like you always, never, those type of you never, you always should be avoided when you want to resolve conflict. Because by the time you start doing that, the person will begin to see that you are making the person feel worthless, or like a repetitive sinner, someone that is unrepentant of a cause. So let us remember that. For example, you should use very subtle words. It helps a lot. Okay, because you see, Satan doesn't want us to enjoy marriage. Make no mistake about that. You know why? He knows that within the marriage relation, the beauties, the excellency, the sweetness of God flows to man. He knows. So what he's been doing since the establishment of the relationship, he started intercepting it, like he did in the Garden of Eden. After the marriage was instituted, he came in subtly using the serpent to deceive the woman. And what was the intention? To place the woman as the leader of the marriage against the will of God. At that time, God had allowed them to flow freely into leadership and followership. That was the reason. God was very clear. He created both of them in a manner that they will flow into the leadership more naturally, without compulsion. But when the woman presumptuously ate the fruit, what happened? In Genesis chapter 3 verse 16, God said, "Because you have done this, I will multiply thy sorrow in thy conception, and in sorrow you shall bring forth. All thy desire shall be that of your husband, but he will rule over you." You see, God now made that decree. If not, Satan, after that decree, Satan continued. They told him he will crawl on his belly. He's still continuing. All he's doing is to bring misery to the woman, to destroy her and cause her pain. That's why today we're having a marriage drought. Women are so many, and they tell you they can't find good husbands. It's Satan that is creating this environment. And so when a woman cannot find a good husband, Mr. Right, what does she do? She lives on as a single woman. And when she's single, she starts to look for ways to satisfy her sexual needs. And in doing so, she commits all manner of sin. And her Christianity is not whole. Her followership of God is K-legged. Because every now and then, she falls into fornication, or she uses all manner of sex toys to commit sexual immoralities. Masturbation and all manner of things are done. In the Western world, when I visited some time ago, I went into a sex shop, and I was just observing, and I saw women happily buying all manner of sex objects, machines, and they were very glad, happily buying it. I'm sure you are listening, and you are living in such countries and in those Western world, and in your mind, what is this man from Africa, from Nigeria saying? It is that knowledge that has elevated your thought against the will of God that we need to talk to, so that you can change and understand that God, the Creator, is watching the world. He knows what is happening. And so Satan is at work. So this is why when we want to settle marital crisis, we should be very, very mindful, knowing that Satan comes to the meeting. He wants to infuriate us so we cannot resolve our problem, so that we cannot be friends with our spouses. No. Listen actively. That's a very important tool in resolving conflict. Keep an open mind as you listen to your spouse. Keep an open mind. Pay attention to their body language as well as their words. Do not, yes, Omokini, Selena has joined. Thank you for joining this morning. It's an early morning broadcast. Keep an open mind. Because we have a lot of things that are making us angry in marriage. Number one is finance. Finance leads to less sexual desire. Then you start denying yourself sex. From there, it leads to multiple problems, and then from there, it cascades into bigger challenges. You now say we need to divorce because we have irreconcilable difference. No, you can. There's no difference between a child of God that is irreconcilable. That language is a Satan's word, and that's why it is used mostly in the courts where they divorce people. But in God's kingdom, why will a husband and wife have what is the difference that is reconcilable? No, for the wife submit to her husband, and therefore once there's submission and the husband loves, nothing can be irreconcilable. Let that word be out of your lexicon. Don't say there's something irreconcilable. Pay attention to the person's body language, exactly what they are not saying. A lot of men say women are nagging. They nag. No, they are not nagging. They communicate. Women express their thoughts. But in order for them not to come across as rude, they make sure that the words are short per time and they keep repeating them. Men should pay attention. Pay attention to your wives and get to know the deep pains of their heart. For most of the time, women have a lot of burden that they want to unleash. Who else would they put this on except their husband? That's why God said that men, do not be bitter with your wife. Have compassion for them. That statement that God wrote in scripture is very, very clear that we should not be bitter with our wives, because they will come to us with a lot of challenges. They will test us. What will they test? Women will test the love of man, just like we humans have tested the love of God. For God created man in his image and commanded him to love his wife. That word command meaning that you will love her irrespective of her challenges, irrespective of the problem she will give you. It's a command. It's not a choice. So when a man tells me I don't love my wife, I have compassion for him, for he does not yet understand who he is and why he is and what he is to the wife he has married. He doesn't know. Just like Christ loved us when we were yet sinners. You see that? It is the same way a husband loves a wife. Because before you marry her, she was already a sinner. She was already the transgressor, the one that ate the fruit. So in that state, you have to have compassion for her. So please listen with an open mind. Listen with an open mind. And make sure you understand what your spouse is saying, by mirroring their statement. To mirror someone's statement is to ponder deeply and check the behavior in relation to what they are saying. The world say women nag. The Bible says we should have understanding. That the word nag is a bit negative. Rather, we should say she wishes to say many things to you. But because she doesn't want to come across as disrespectful, she Toki Suarez. That's my dear friend. And Ungozi Alozie is also watching. Toki, thanks for coming in and tuning in this morning and joining us. So, for example, if your spouse says, I just need time alone, a lot of men will say you want to divorce? You need time alone. No, she might be saying to you that she wants to be alone to think through this. She's not saying she wants to divorce. Unfortunately, if we don't listen attentively, we will miss this important point. So, at the end of the day, we should understand that so you feel like you can unwind and relax best by yourself. Is that right? The point is, let us not misunderstand the words that are coming from our spouses when we're about to resolve conflict. This is why we should listen attentively. Compromise works. So which means if the matter is very difficult, I will advise that you compromise, which means you take turns. But husband, wife, do not compromise on anything that offends God. I gave the example of Ananias and Sapphira. They compromised to lie. When you compromise to offend God, that is not the kind of compromise a husband has. Don't compromise for your wife to be the head of the home. Don't compromise for your husband to be the one submitting to you. Such compromise has already condemned your marriage. Any arrangement that brings itself above the knowledge and the wisdom of God is not acceptable. Even if you live in the UK, in America, or where legislation has made it allowable. I learned that even in Belgium, there are wife swap. You can swap your wife with a friend. Yes. That act in itself is contrary to the will of God. So if you and your wife compromise to go and do threesome, it's not correct. It's not acceptable. That is a wrong compromise. If you compromise that, look, this marriage, wife, you are the head, or some compromise for the man to go and transform to a woman, such are not acceptable. We are talking about compromises that serves the purpose of God, which is the survival of the marriage to the glory of God. Fighting fair. Keep your cool, please. You know, there's a lot of frustration in society, especially now that we're in the pandemic. I, as a man, while we are home, I am thinking about how the family will survive if this lockdown is extended. Such thoughts can bring certain pressure on husband and wife. The woman is also thinking of how she's going to cope in the period. Both of us have stresses, and in that case, we should be calm. We should keep a cool head. Don't raise your voice. We know that it's part of our culture in this part of the world to be very loud when we speak. This is not acceptable in marriage. Some people, when they want to address their spouse, neighbors will hear them. People outside will hear because they feel frustrated. Yes, I am having Olua Tejire Rastos. Thank you for tuning in, a great minister of the God's Kingdom Society. That's very nice. Thank you for tuning in. So keep your cool. Don't call your spouse names. Some men call their wife, you this idiot. They didn't call names. No. Some women call their husband's name. They say words to their husband. Or don't get sarcastic. That's another big one. Don't be sarcastic. A husband asks a wife, why do you keep the dustbin outside? They say, because I want to cook it. No, don't be like that. Don't act nasty or put a stop to anything that is unproductive. You might, if you see that your temper is rising, I will advise you to calm down, walk away from the place for a moment, and then reconnect again. It's very important because we have hurts. You are doing this thing repeatedly. I've been telling you, no. You know why? It takes time for people to change. And since you were not brought up in the same circumstance, it is natural that you will have challenges. And when you have challenges, what brings you to superiority is that you overcome them. Just like those who run hurdles, a race of hurdle. When they are running, the more you climb, the stronger you get. So when a lot of people think that because there is a challenge in marriage, that the marriage is finished, no, that is when Pastor Jude Odun, that is when the marriage is tested. The more you go, the stronger it gets, the sweeter it becomes. You keep going. You keep seeing your wife that this one, she's here to test my love. I am here to test her submissiveness. Man, test her submissiveness. Wife, test his love. Don't ask your husband to prove his love to you. No. You know why? To demand a man to prove his love to you, you are telling him to fall. No, he proved his love to love of you to his God. It is not you. No, don't say, just like Delilah told Samson, prove to me that you love me. Tell me the secret of your power. Prove. You can say underline. And in many cases, women who have asked their husband to prove their love, they pull the husband down. No, your job is to elevate him, to uplift your husband, to do him good all the days of his life. You find that in Proverbs chapter 31, from verse 10, you find it. It's somewhere around verse 11. He said, who a virtuous woman who can find, her price is worth more than rubies, and that she doeth good to her husband all the days of his life, until the man dies. So when you know this and you are trying to resolve conflict with your husband, what do? You come with that attitude, knowing that I'm going to resolve a quarrel with the one that I am doing good, with the one that I'm supposed to do good, my husband, my head. You don't go there with an attitude of quarreling. So if you are getting too angry to talk rationally, go somewhere by yourself and take a few deep breaths and blow off steam by taking a walk around the house. Go to the room, go to the kitchen. In fact, at that time, go and get him a cup of tea. Act out, do something called love, like Christ acted out on the cross when they were mocking him. He looked down and said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they are. That's the way I see with my wife. That's the way you should see your wife. That's the way wife should see husband. We don't know the picture. If we know the picture of what God has set up, our attitude will be different. The Bible says that, for I have not seen nor ear heard what God has prepared for those that. That promise means that anything you see on earth, it's a copy, a bad copy of what God has in store. So our husband, our wives are part. Lucas, thank you for joining. Our wife and husbands are those testing ground for those qualities that we have acquired from our Father in heaven. While we are here, as we go to church, we are being trained so that those our characters will come out. We flourish. And when they are coming out, they must be tested. Because if you have a gift and it's not tested, how do you prove it? So whenever God gives a gift, he tests it. So your wife is there to test your love. Wife, your husband is there. Avoid hitting below the belt. Stay civil and polite. Some things like name calling or picking at your spouse's insecurities should remain off limits. Don't say them. We should be careful. Avoid future conflicts. Don't say things that will build anger in the future. Okay? Avoid picking at your spouse of little things. Learn to distinguish between real problems and minor issues. Don't just be jumping, so that we can have, this period of pandemic, God is teaching so many lessons. He's teaching beautiful lessons, and I observe them, and I so much love it. God is saying that after all said and done, it's going to be between you and that your wife and your children. After you can see now, to even go to the neighbor's apartment is difficult. After all said and done, that is why you should invest in yourselves. So let your spouse make mistakes. No one is perfect, and your spouses will make mistakes just like anyone else. And so you wouldn't like if someone held your past mistakes against you. So don't you hold your mistakes against them. So let us not make life difficult for ourselves. So finally speaking this morning, my lovely brothers and sisters and friends, let us know that in marriage, anyone who is able to say I'm sorry first, in fact, is the bravest. And the one that forgives is the strongest. And he who forgets is the happiest. So this, I want to repeat that. The one who says I'm sorry is the bravest. And the one who forgives is the strongest. And the one who forgets is the happiest. What are we looking for in this world? Happiness. And happiness comes from dispensing charity, which is the pure love of Christ. And if you don't dispense it to your wife, who are you going to give it to outside? That's why the popular word, charity begins at home. Let love flow from husband to wife, and let wife give the husband submission, which is the language of love for a man. If you don't submit to your husband, it's difficult for him to understand the type of love you have. Whatever love you have, it's expressed in submissiveness and respect to your husband. Husband, your love for your wife is expressed in honoring her and doing her good and benevolence, because you are the direct image of God and you live in a home where you dispense that love as a father. For the role of a father, no one can retire until you are dead. Knowing this full well, you will remember to bring your wife to you this morning. If she's there with you, bring her close and give her those assuring words. Tell her you love her and do not place a condition upon your love. And your wife, assure your husband that you know he is the head ordained by God to lead you in this marriage to the promised land. For you are joined heirs together in the promise that God has made. It's a beautiful thing. Marriage is sweet. Only Satan makes it bitter. If yours is currently facing challenges, I want to assure you that once you know this, that Satan must be defeated, you'll come to yourself with those soothing words, words of affirmation, words of encouragement, words that edifies, that builds, not words that cast down. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you for spending time on data. All of you that have joined me this morning, I love you with the love of God, and I appreciate you because you believe that the marriage institution must be sustained. Even if you are already divorced, you should have hope that you can make it again. And I believe the opportunity is always there. You have to seize it. Thank you very much.